Welcome to another episode of the Save Yourself podcast. I'm Dr. Amy Shah, and today I'm going to be going over the 7 things you want to avoid if you want to age well. I love this podcast because it's a place where I can really expand on the things I talk about on social media, go into more detail, tell you some studies. And I'm so appreciative of all your support so far, your reviews on the podcast, your comments on YouTube. It all means so much. I wanted to mention that we have an in-person event coming on September 19th and 20th. There is a retreat in Scottsdale, and you don't want to miss it. If you want to check out more about that, it's at amymdwellness.com. We're going to do assessments of how you walk and your muscle structure. We're going to talk about what's beneficial, cold plunge versus sauna. We're going to actually do those things. We're going to talk about the top foods you should be eating. We're going to eat in the 30-33 pattern that I talk about so often, which is the optimal way you should be eating as you get older. So these are just some of the things. And of course, we're going to connect, we're going to laugh, we're going to dance, we're going to exercise, we're going to do yoga. There's going to be amazing swag. So please check that out. It's at amymdwellness.com. It's the Save Yourself retreat. So I would love for you to be a part of that. I also wanted to mention that our chai latte stick packs and our HHH stick packs are all available now. You can see those on Amy MD Wellness as well. The chai latte stick packs is a chai stick pack that you can just add to hot water and you have an instant sugar-free, healthy gut health drink. It's really great for cravings. It's something I have with me all the time when I travel. And the new product is the HHH drink. It's the happy, healthy hydration drink that I have made in conjunction with a very, very, very amazing colleague, Todd Stottlemyre. He is a World Series pitcher, champion, and a champion for health as well. So we've created a drink that's very unique, that has happy probiotics in it. It has the right amount of sodium and potassium because most of the drinks out there have way too much sodium. And then it has the clean ingredients, really nothing artificial in there. It's got a little bit of fiber, prebiotic fiber, which is so good for you. So that being said, I hope you try those out. And today, let's get into it. So there's 7 things that you want to avoid if you want to live a long, healthy, happy life. So these are the things that are going to affect your brain, your gut, your hormones, your muscles. These are the things that pretty much can change your life. And I think the reason why I want to really piece it out for you is that on the internet, you'd think you have to do 100 things or you basically can't eat anything, do anything. Because everything is so bad for you. So I want to kind of isolate the things that are actually bad for you, that have science behind it, so that you can really elevate your health. So part of what we do here is identify things that actually you should eliminate and really concentrate on the things that can elevate your health. So that's what this episode is all about. So let's get into it. So the first thing that I want you to avoid as much as possible is tobacco. Tobacco in the form of smoking, tobacco in the form of chewing, vaping, all of those things. We know that people who don't use tobacco regularly, or who have never used tobacco regularly, have a 30% decreased risk of death from all causes. Just by not using tobacco products. I mean, that is just an easy 30% right there. So I don't know if this is something, that you may want to talk to people that vape, or it's not just smoking cigarettes. It's a lot of other things. We still have a good number of the population that does smoke. And if you look at literally, there's a WashU study that looked at 4 factors that raise your risk of death, and smoking is one of the 4. The other ones you might be wondering is poor diet, high blood pressure, and obesity. So if you can control those 4, you have already decreased your risk of death. So that's my number one tip for you, is really to minimize or eliminate your lifetime use of tobacco. Number 2 in my book is on a similar vein, is alcohol. So here's the thing with alcohol. When I was in training, alcohol was thought of as like an anti-inflammatory, great drug for your body. Like it wasn't too long ago that we talked about having a glass of red wine every night, and people would have two and think that they were doing something super healthy for their body. And now it's completely flipped. We looked at, there's a new study from JAMA that said one drink a night, even one drink a night on a regular basis shrinks your brain. So if you think about it, if you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s and you want to live a long, healthy life with great brain power, you want to grow your brain and not shrink your brain, you're probably going to want to either eliminate the daily alcohol use or minimize it to like once or twice a week. So there is some good research for if you're someone who's like, okay, I cannot eliminate all alcohol from my life. I love it, or it's part of my social, strategy. There are some good studies that show that you can eliminate some of the risk, or at least mitigate some of the risk with how you use alcohol. For example, if you're using it only once or twice a week in moderate amounts and you're exercising regularly, you can actually really reduce the risk of all-cause mortality and almost kind of eliminate increased cancer risk with alcohol use. So if you are going to use alcohol, it's really great to limit it to 1 to 2 days a week and to exercise on a daily basis and as much as you can to actually help with that risk. Now, not saying go out and drink as much as you want, and then if you exercise, you can, kind of counteract that. That's not true. That's not what I'm saying. But for those of you who want to have the occasional alcoholic drink, 1 to 3 drinks a week, or for men, it might be 3 to 4 drinks a week, you can mitigate any of those other negative effects, at least reduce them by engaging in regular exercise. So that's number 2. And then let's go to number 3. So one of the things I think that people often ask me so much about is supplements, okay? So not taking certain supplements or eating certain nutrients can actually raise your risk of death and increase your rate of aging. So surprisingly though, multivitamins is not one of them. So multivitamins, in a recent study, they were shown to not change the risk of all-cause mortality at all. So meaning that taking a multivitamin is not a way to extend your life. At least that's what the studies show. Taking a multivitamin, everybody always thinks of it as like insurance, quote unquote. That study kind of debunked that. That in fact, the trend showed that people that took regular multivitamins, it trended towards maybe raising mortality risk a tiny bit, not significant. So, but it doesn't really make a difference. So it's not like you can eat an unhealthy diet and just cover yourself with a multivitamin. So that doesn't work. There are some nutrients, though, that are related to better aging. And I wanted to mention one of those especially is magnesium. Magnesium is part of over 300, probably more like 500 processes in the body. So it's not just muscle cramps, for example, or sleep, for example, or headaches. There's over 300 things that it's doing in the body. And one of the things that it does is actually improves brain health. And we know that 550 milligrams of magnesium every day helps in slowing of brain aging. And this was especially seen in women. So if you're someone who, like the 75+% of people in the US that doesn't get enough magnesium, you probably want to supplement with a magnesium glycinate or a magnesium threonate, or just eat more magnesium-rich foods like black beans, nuts, leafy greens, and get up to 550 milligrams of magnesium every day. That can help with slowing of aging, especially in the brain. The other interesting thing about magnesium is that it helps reduce your risk of having a low level of vitamin D. So we all have heard, I think most people realize that vitamin D is such an essential vitamin. It's actually considered a hormone in our body. But most people don't realize that magnesium has a lot to do with vitamin D. And essentially, when you're taking in magnesium, you're helping your vitamin D levels go to where they need to go. So you're reducing your risk of low levels of vitamin D when you're taking magnesium. So another benefit to magnesium is that it helps regulate your vitamin D levels. And vitamin D is another vitamin that we want for our brain health and for our hormone health and for our bone health. It also is essential for our healthy aging. In fact, I find that most women, especially in perimenopause, ages 30 to 50, they actually are low in vitamin D. So having adequate vitamin D is essential in healthy aging. Number 4, something that is leading to faster aging and early risk of death is poor nutrition. Now, I know you knew that, and I know that, but poor nutrition is something that is one of the 4 modifiable risk factors for death. So meaning that if you look at all the things you could be doing in your life, one of the 4 risk factors, 4 things you could be doing to improve your chances of living a long, healthy life is eating a healthy diet. So the poor diet that we eat in the developed world is contributing to faster aging and higher risk of death. So you might be saying, well, okay, yeah, I kind of know that fast food and junk food and sugary food, donuts and candy are bad for me, but what the heck am I supposed to be eating to increase longevity? And that is a big, big topic of debate. I think if you got 4 experts in a room, they would kind of fight out what the optimal diet for aging is. So that being said, we know that a non-ultra processed food diet is something that can cut your risk of death by 20 to 40%. So what does that mean? Ultra processed food is food that cannot be made in a kitchen. So it's your Twix, it's your Cheetos, it's your the complicated frozen food meals. Like these are foods that have ingredients in them that don't occur in a culinary setting. So even if you had every ingredient in the world, you could not recreate that food. So again, like I'm talking about Snickers and Kit Kats or like Taco Bell burritos, for example. They have ingredients in them that don't exist in the culinary world. And so if you minimize, and I can't say eliminate, obviously, even someone like me, I eat ultra-processed foods because, let's be honest, protein powder, protein bars, all of that is ultra-processed. And I talked about this when I was on my retreat. The first retreat we ever did was this past summer in May in Costa Rica. And I was talking to the people at the retreat, and we were marveling at how much we felt better and more energy and less brain fog when we were eating in Costa Rica. And part of it, we thought, of course, you're less stressed and, you're out of your crazy life. But we weren't eating any packaged foods. I didn't have any of my protein shakes with me. I didn't have any bars. I didn't have any snacks. I was just literally eating the fresh food that they would serve at the resort. And it was delicious. And it was like from the local area. And I think people don't realize that ultra-processed food, yes, it is your fast food drive-thrus, but it's almost everything in the grocery store. About 80% of a typical American grocery store is ultra-processed food. So you can imagine that having a diet of very little ultra-processed food is really difficult these days because it's not just, your candy bars. It's your frozen food meals. It's your ice creams. It's your snacks. It's all of those things. So minimizing ultra-processed foods could be the easiest way to reduce your risk of death. So one of the practical things I would tell you to do is like, okay, let's take breakfast, for example, right? I always talk about 30-33. 30 grams of protein in the morning, 30 grams of fiber throughout the day, and 3 servings of probiotic foods. So you might say, instead of doing my drive-through Starbucks or my breakfast burrito at the fast food place, what if I either in advance or that morning made a veggie egg scramble and ate it with some probiotic cottage cheese and had coffee with it? It's something that I've demonstrated this on Instagram. It literally takes less than 10 minutes, probably the same amount of time it would take for you to go through a drive-through, especially if you buy all the ingredients cut and chopped like I do. It's such an easy way to just cut out that one ultra processed meal in your day. So instead of a Frappuccino or a burrito from a fast food place or, a Pop-Tart or a bagel or whatever it is, you're having something that has micronutrients, it has fiber, it has protein, it has probiotics, and it can actually really help you as you get older to prevent some of the issues. So, for example, in perimenopausal women who suffer from hormonal changes during that time, they often feel a lot of fatigue. They have weight gain around the belly. They have brain fog, changes in their cycle. They have changes in their skin. And so much of it gets better when you start doing the 30-33. And it's one of the things I get messages about every single day. Like, wow, this is something that I started doing. It started changing my life so quickly. In fact, I had a few OBGYNs, so doctors, message me that when women in perimenopause ask about nutrition, we just give them your name so that they can learn more about it. So can't tell you enough about that strategy to anti-age. Now, there are certain foods that are known to anti-age. One of them is blueberries, especially berries in general. But blueberries have flavonoids and polyphenols and fiber. And the special ingredients in blueberries have actually been shown in within hours to improve cognition. And they're actually even if they're frozen, they've actually shown increased levels of neurons in your brain, more BDNF, which is like miracle grow for your brain. You want to be having things with high levels of polyphenols in your life. So berries are my favorite source of polyphenols, but tea is a great source of polyphenols, and so is coffee. So getting more polyphenols in your life is a great way to help with the aging process. And people often, if you're eating a very, like I said, an ultra processed typical diet, you're probably not getting a lot of polyphenols in your life. The one polyphenol in your life that you're getting that could help with longevity is coffee. Coffee, it has been shown in many, many studies, 3 cups a day to improve longevity. And often they've seen these benefits even in decaffeinated coffee. So it's not just the caffeine, it's the other aspects of coffee that seem to improve things as well. And obviously be careful with your coffee. You don't want to be adding all the sugar and the additives to it. A Frappuccino is not really coffee, as you know. And then tea is also associated with longevity because of the polyphenols and the flavonoids in it. I love chai because chai is a combination of black tea, but it also has ginger and cardamom and cinnamon and all these life-lengthening spices. So spices that the Ayurvedic sages added to tea to make it like a medicinal tonic. They made it for the king's court, and it was created thousands of years ago. And it remains to be a delicious and healthy drink as long as you're not adding tons of sugar. And for a lot of people, the processed dairy can be really irritating as well. So those are other things that you could be doing for your health. So I think we've gone over, tobacco, alcohol, vitamins like magnesium and vitamin D, and how multivitamins actually don't do much. And then we talked about the foods, like nutrition in general. So we know polyphenols are really, really great to grow neurons in your brain. And then having a low ultra processed food diet can help you age better. And also adding omega-3 fatty acids. I think that's something that people don't often do in their lives, and it's maybe something you would have to supplement if you're someone who doesn't eat fish. Omega-3s have been shown to improve the aging process, and it's one of the easiest things that you could do for your gut and brain is eat enough omega-3 fatty acids. So that's the top 4. So let's go to number 5. Number 5 is a hard one for me. I think this is one that I struggle with a lot. It's stress reduction. By reducing your stress, you can actually reduce your risk of death by over 20%. So we are talking about a 22% reduction in death just by reducing stress. And that's probably an understatement because how do you really measure stress? Are you looking at cortisol? Are you looking at any other hormones? We see all the time that stress contributes to either a long life or a shortened life. And the problem with stress is that one, it's hard to figure out what does stress even mean. And two, I think medicine is just starting to understand that mind-body connection and starting to understand that, hey, if you modify your environment, modify the people you hang out with, modify your intakes, modify your sleep schedule, you can actually really help stress. I think until now, stress was kind of like this thing that we told patients like, oh, just reduce your stress, and didn't really have any like tangible evidence, and we didn't know how to actually do it. So this is what I have discovered in my life and with my patients, and it's something that I would, recommend to so many of you is consider doing kind of a cortisol reset for a couple of days. Now, that is different for everyone. And, there's a lot of cortisol resets on the internet that you can buy all these pills. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about really taking note of the things that you do in your life that makes you stressed out and trying for a couple of days to reduce or actually eliminate those. And having some stress resets in your life, a few days here and there, can be so beneficial for your brain and body and really take down those stress levels in your body. So what does that cortisol reset look like? We have a cortisol reset that we do for free on our website. We often run challenges. We have a guide. So it looks like this. You would cut out your caffeine or maybe half your caffeine. So this might be the time you do the decaf coffee, or you might do the green teas to have less caffeine, or you just cut it out altogether to kind of reduce that cortisol response. Now, the studies show that coffee and tea and caffeine does raise cortisol. However, your body does get used to that cortisol rise. So it's not as bad as people make it out to be on the internet. Like, you can't use caffeine ever. Actually, caffeine can be really great. Like I said, there's lots of good studies that shows coffee and tea to be good for your brain and longevity. But what I'm talking about is taking down the level of caffeine. Most of us are having a lot of caffeine, probably too much caffeine, and maybe contributing to sleep disturbances or anxiety. And so really checking your relationship with caffeine for those couple of days is a really great thing to do. And then the other things that are shown to mitigate stress is go out in nature, get sunlight. We know that getting nature time about 20 minutes a day, getting sunlight 20 minutes a day, getting exercise 20 minutes a day are all ways to kind of take down those stress levels. And I think I really took that for granted all in my training. I kind of thought it was a waste of time to be outside. Unless I was working out, I don't really think it was useful to get sunlight or nature. But during a cortisol reset, if you purposely spend a lot more time outside, you'll notice how much it is reducing your stress and helping you sleep and have a better overall day. So nature time, for example, has actually been shown in so many studies to reduce stress that some people recommend it as a treatment for stress and anxiety and depression. It is like a happy pill. It's a cortisol reset pill. It is something that we don't use enough in medicine. So I definitely think that's part of the cortisol reset. And then the other thing other things you might want to do is incorporate yoga, mindfulness, prayer, or meditation. Those are all really, really nice ways to reduce cortisol. Do exercises that keep you energized rather than depleted. So in that week or that few days that you're doing the cortisol reset, probably don't want to do exercises like an Orange Theory or an F45 or a CrossFit or something that really raises up your cortisol. Now, this is different for everyone. Like if you're a marathon runner or you're a seasoned CrossFitter, then doing CrossFit is not a big deal, or going to a heavy workout class every few days is not a big deal. But if you're the typical person who's a casual exerciser, often cutting out those really higher stress activities can be nice. And doing a walk or a yoga or hiking or dancing or something that actually energizes you rather than depletes you can be a nice way to reset your cortisol as well. And the other easy way to improve your cortisol levels is increase your sleep. Most people in the women that I work with, especially in the 30 to 50 range, that perimenopausal woman has a need for increased sleep. They have a terrible sleep pattern. They have poor circadian rhythms, and almost all of them can benefit from an extra 20, 30 minutes of sleep. So I often recommend that just across the board, you improve your sleep by adding perhaps 20 minutes earlier in the evening, start 20 minutes earlier, or get 20 extra minutes in the morning. Improving your sleep is one of the easiest ways to take down your stress. I think that if you want to shortcut this whole thing and say like, okay, I don't want to do all those things, one thing you would do is increase the amount of sleep you get. It is a game changer for all things, including aging. So that's cortisol reset can be for a few days, or you can incorporate these things over your life on a daily basis, and it can reduce your risk, like I said, 20% or more of all-cause mortality. I think that's pretty understated. Like I said, I think that one of the things that medicine gets wrong is that we don't talk enough about how to reduce stress. Once I finish with all 7, I'm going to tell you a story about how, we can really reduce the risk of death and aging by mindset, and a story about how it's really possible with the power of your mind, but I'll wait till the end to do that. So let's do number 6. Number 6 thing that's aging youth that you should avoid is having a sedentary life. So we are born to move. We are meant to move. We are built to be active. We are not built to be sitting. We are not built to be lying all the time. If you look at the studies across the board, there is like a 30 to 75% reduction in death when you incorporate exercise. I mean, there's no pill, there's no procedure, there is no magic remedy like exercise. So I think that when you look at the data, it's crazy that we have so many people in our society that really don't regularly exercise. But you might be wondering, what does it even mean? What does sedentary mean? What does exercising mean? So if you exercise 3 times a week for 20 minutes, that is kind of the level of exercise that can reduce your risk of mortality, okay? But if you exercise 5 times a week or more, you actually are on the higher end of decreasing mortality, more like the 50 to 75% decrease in mortality. 20 minutes is something that you can easily do in your day. It can be something as simple as walking. We know that even if you're doing 4,000 to 7,000 steps, 20 minutes of walking every day, you can grow areas of your brain in the hippocampus. You can reduce your risk of death. Walking may be the most underrated longevity tool of them all. So walking every day is something that you can do to reduce your risk of death and to improve your risk of aging well. We have a study that shows that walking 3 times a week for 45 minutes actually grows the hippocampus. So the hippocampus is the area of the brain that's associated with memories and mood and cognition. And so as you age, that is something easy that you can do to incorporate into your life. Like it doesn't take much, just a good pair of sneakers and you're set. And that's 3 times a week, 45 minutes. If you are someone who wants to optimize your exercise, and you might be saying, okay, Dr. Amy, like, what is the optimal? Okay, I know the minimal is, 3 times a week, 20 minutes, but what's the optimal? So there was a study on this. They looked at sedentary older individuals, and they had them exercising for the first time. Like these are people who don't exercise regularly, and they put them on a protocol. And they first started with just easy cycling and walking, and then they moved them up to kind of weight training and a little more vigorous exercise. And then they moved them up to having 1 sprint a week in the exercise. And what they found is that after about 2 years of this, so they worked them up to a protocol over a year and a half, and then for the last 6 months, they just repeated this. they were able to anti-age their heart by 20 years. So a 50-year-old heart looked like it was 30. And I think that is amazing that you can actually anti-age your heart by exercise. This is Dr. Ben Levine's group. And what they did is they took sedentary individuals, they put them on a 5-day-a-week exercise plan that included moderate exercise every single week. It was a mix of cardio and weight training. And then once a week, they had a sprint 4x4. So what that means is once a week, they had them do 4 minutes of heavy work, alternating with 4 minutes of rest, and then 4 minutes of heavy work again 4 times. We're going to do a version of this at the retreat, by the way. Or you can do that 4 minutes, Norwegian 4x4, or you can do a sprint for 30 seconds and recover and do that 8 times. So you have a total of 4 minutes of sprinting. That is the equivalent. And so that's something that you can incorporate into your life on a weekly basis to really get that protocol of, optimal health and something that can anti-age your heart by 20 years. I think that someone like me, I love to do yoga and walking, and I love to reduce my cortisol, but adding in that sprint is really hard, but it's a really great way to kind of keep your cardiac health really the optimal levels, especially as you age, so that you're able to do all the things in life that you want to do and hike the things and do the things and still have that flexibility and strength in your heart that you want. So that is exercise. And again, a 30 to 75% reduction in all-cause mortality with exercise. There is nothing else you could do in your life that could reduce your risk of death as much as exercise. And so it's pretty shocking to me how many people in the US still continue to be sedentary. And I get it, we live really busy lives and people work, 2 jobs, or they have kids and no childcare at home. And so I encourage people to be on any end of that spectrum, even if it's 20 minutes a couple times a week. That's enough to start with, and then you work yourself up when you can and if you can. So that was number 6. And now we're getting to number 7, things to avoid to help you age. So this is all about this aging accelerators. So we know that there's some longevity supplements, promising longevity things that will slow down aging. And help you with these aging accelerators. So one of the things that's an aging accelerator as you get older is your NAD levels. Your NAD levels, as they fall, you have less DNA repair, you have more reactive oxygen species, less activation of your sirtuins, which is the longevity pathway. And so as your NAD levels decline with age and with poor lifestyle, you're really accelerating your aging. So one of the promising, treatments I think a lot of you have heard about is NAD, either in injectable form, IV form, or sometimes oral forms. And there's lots of versions of it that people are selling or doing. And I think we're at the very beginning of this discovery. I don't think we know exactly how to replace NAD in a reliable population level way. I don't think that it's for everyone. I do think that doing NAD injections or IVs is an interesting thing. But what I think is more important is to kind of slow down the decline of your NAD, which comes from exercise, which comes from healthy eating, which comes from all the other things that we're saying. There is a lot of other new things on the horizon that we are talking about with longevity. So there's lots of medications, supplements, and aging accelerators that we're trying to battle. Urolithin A is another compound that seems to be associated with accelerated aging and longevity. So when you eat certain foods like the high polyphenol foods like pomegranate, blueberries, your gut bacteria digest this and create something called urolithin A. And urolithin A is also associated with longevity. And urolithin A also declines as you age. And so another promising compound in the anti-aging world is urolithin A, like supplementing with urolithin A or taking in urolithin A through food. So I think that's also a very interesting area. There's multiple companies that are making urolithin A, creating, products to help you replace the urolithin A as you age. These are all kind of experimental things that I think have a lot of promising studies around it. So the other longevity compounds that, if you don't get enough are associated with accelerated aging are resveratrol. That's a promising anti-aging compound. There's rapamycin, another promising anti-aging compound, metformin. You might know it as an anti-diabetes drug, but this has been looked at as something that can help with longevity. Curcumin, which is in turmeric, associated with longevity. Spermidine, ascarbose, aspirin, and there's a bunch of other things that people have looked into as maybe the, fountain of youth. I would say that, yes, the fountain of youth is something that may be worth looking into. However, slowing down the degradation of these compounds is probably more important than ever. The reason I don't feel so strongly about taking these longevity supplements is that there seems to be a lot of side effects from different medications and supplements. And we know for a fact that medications and supplements can be doing things that we don't know. And then in the long term, they may be hurting more than they're helping, meaning that something might be increasing your NAD levels or they might be decreasing your reactive oxygen species. But then they're also doing something else that's causing you to lose your brain health or lose your muscle mass or lose your, that kind of thing. So I think that I tread very lightly and carefully with these longevity supplements. I don't think there's a lot of them that I actually love. I love things that can increase your growth hormone, like sauna therapy, for example, because sauna therapy to me is not something that, one, you're ingesting. Number two, we know from all the data and the finished studies that sauna can actually increase your growth hormone, which declines with aging. And growth hormone for women in menopause, for example, really declines rapidly. And adding more growth hormone through things like heat therapy is a great way to boost up healing process, to boost up energy and growth hormone production. So I would rather use activities like exercise and sauna than rely on these supplements that have some promise in longevity. So that's something that I wanted to mention, though, because I know when you talk about aging, you can't leave out the promising anti-aging supplements. And so speaking of sauna therapy, I think that would be kind of a bonus. Heat therapy and cold therapy have become super popular. And I think I mentioned in the beginning that in our retreat, we'll be talking about both heat therapy and cold therapy and doing both heat therapy and cold therapy. However, when it comes to longevity, when it comes to all-cause mortality, when it comes to extending life, I think sauna has the most data behind it. So if you're asking me, should I do cold therapy or should I do heat therapy? I would say both. But if you had to pick one, I would say heat therapy. Heat therapy, as in a dry sauna at 167 degrees Fahrenheit, has been shown to reduce all-cause mortality. Sauna therapy is very popular in the Finnish culture, and we have many, many studies, large population studies of those Finnish people that use these saunas on a regular basis and how much it can extend their life. And so really not doing hot therapy is a way to accelerate aging, is like how I would put it. It's like you should incorporate some kind of hot yoga, sauna, steam room, hot baths. I think there's lots of ways to get your core body temperature up, and that seems to be the mechanism of action. So when you get your core body temperature up, it releases heat shock proteins, which in turn kind of make you stronger. You know, that thing about like exercise, how it breaks down a little bit of muscle, gives you a little bit of stress, but then in response, the body becomes stronger. It's the same thing with heat shock proteins. When you do something like a heat therapy, you produce heat shock proteins, which is a little bit of stress for your body, a little bit of dehydration, but in the end, your body becomes stronger and it creates systems that improve longevity. So now that I've gotten through the 7 things to avoid for accelerated aging, I want to get into a story of how you can actually use your mind to age well. And what I want to remind you is that if you look at the data, most of us get 4,000 weeks if we're lucky, okay? 4,000 weeks, and that's if we're lucky, if we live a long life. And most of us are done with 2,000 of them. So you really have just 2,000 weeks or less to do the things that you want in this world. And when you look at longevity, so you look at as you get older, what can I be doing to feel younger, to look younger, to do things that I did when I was younger, you have to talk about this counterclockwise study. So this counterclockwise study was done by Ellen Langer. And she was at Harvard and she was a psychologist and she would go to nursing homes and she was, watching these people eating kind of horrible food and being told that they couldn't do things and being around people that told them that they were getting old. And a lot of them were using canes and walkers. And she took 8 of those people and she took them to a retreat center. And it was like an old monastery turned into a retreat center. And she wanted to do an experiment. She decorated the entire retreat center as if it was 1959. The study was done in 1979, but she decorated the entire retreat center as if it was 1959. So she kind of turned back the clock 20 years, okay, in this retreat center. So she decorated it with things from 1959. There was music from 1959. She had magazines and newspapers from 1959. She took out all the mirrors and she told the people that were in their 70s and said, hey, I want you to pretend like you were 20 years younger, like the way you were in 1959, and enjoy yourself for a week. And she did all these tests before they went in. She took pictures of them. She had them do gait testing, strength testing, eye vision testing. She had them do some cognitive testing, so brain testing. And then she had them go into this retreat center for a week. So for a week, they pretended like it was 1959. They played, they sang songs, they danced, and they lived kind of in this retreat center, ate food, everything that she was giving to them. After a week, she performed the tests again. And, not surprisingly, the people who were there said they felt better. They felt younger. They felt more vibrant. And so, but what was surprising is that the testing changed. The muscle testing, the gait testing, the vision testing, the strength, the cognition. It was incredible what she was able to show happened in 1 week of just kind of changing the mindset of aging. So I want to leave you with this powerful story because I want you to know that so much of what we believe and how we age and how we live and what we feel has to do with our mindset and what we're surrounding ourselves with, the people, the food, the environment, the noise, the social media, the things that we're taking in. And you have so much control over how you age and how you live and how happy you are by just controlling those inputs. So what I think of it is like, how Instagram and TikTok and all these social media platforms, they give you algorithms and they give you more of what you want and what you've been interested in, what you click on. And that's what happens in your life. So when you surround yourself with negativity or you surround yourself with toxic people or foods or thoughts, that's what ends up showing up in your life and manifesting in the future. So if you want to live a young, vibrant, healthy life, surround yourself with young, vibrant, healthy things, people, voices. And that's what ends up happening. So I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Save Yourself podcast. I want to thank you for all your reviews and ratings and continuing to follow along on social. I'm at FastingMD on Instagram. If you have any questions or concerns, you can message me or comment there. We'll do our best to get back to you. So just to recap today, we talked about all the things that you should avoid to accelerate aging. And we talked about tobacco. We talked about alcohol. We talked about the vitamins. We talked about foods. We talked about stress. We talked about exercise. And when we talked about kind of longevity compounds. And then I kind of gave a bonus with heat therapy because that's something kind of emerging in my life, something that I've changed recently. And then ended with the mindset takeaway, because I honestly think that even in the last couple of years, as I've learned more about how mindset really ages you differently, I've started to do more mindset work and slow down to reduce my cortisol and to really be more mindful about what I'm doing with my day. So instead of being like, in med school, we are taught to multitask and do everything we can and work till, the midnight oil, kind of skimp on sleep and be busy all the time. And what I've learned is that the less busy I am, the more intentional I am, the more mindset work I do, the more nature time I get, the better I can age and the better I can do work and the better I can put myself out into the world. So I hope that that's something that you can take away from this as well. So I want to thank you for your time and thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Save Yourself podcast.